Hey students, we're going to go through some notes today, so we don't have to do so much in class and we can do some more discussion and hands-on work in class. So we're done with North America actually. We're going to go into South America, which we call collectively Latin America. So it will include Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America. And so we're going to call this chapters 9 through 11 Latin America. So let's get started. One thing I want you to keep in mind and just kind of remember as we're talking about this is a point that I talked about a little bit last chapter when we talked about North America and the effect of European like colonization. Remember the idea of the Columbian Exchange? We're going to talk about that again in South America because it had a big effect on the way South America, Central America, Mexico, it had a very large effect on the way those areas developed because they were very much developed and inhabited by indigenous people. However, after European colonization began, it looked a little bit different. So just on the whole, let's start with landforms and resources. Latin America stretches 7,000 miles from Mexico to the southern tip of South America, and that includes the Caribbean, as I mentioned. This is a big area. You know, and you can almost imagine if we're stretching 7,000 miles from north to south, and look at all of those little islands there, how varied of a culture, how diverse of resources, how different of climate and weather that they're going to experience. So this is a big area that it's hard to make just simple generalizations about. They're very unique in their own ways. We'll start with the mountains. These are some of probably what South America especially is most famous for. The Andes Mountains are part of a mountain chain extending from the Rockies. And so now think about where the Rockies begin, really even up in Mexico. The Rocky Mountain chains extends all the way down through the United States. And then into Mexico, it becomes known as the Sierra Madres. And then into South America, we call it the Andes. And if you look at that map there, you can see the Andes kind of producing the spine of the western part of South America. Even if you look closely at that map, do any of you have any clothing that says Patagonia? It's a very popular clothing brand right now. Patagonia was a company that started in California actually for rock climbers, and but now we can see how they're getting their name because this area in the southern part of South America called Patagonia. The Andes are that barrier along the west coast, and most of the population occurs to the east of the Andes and to the north of the Andes. Because the Andes Mountains are very sparsely inhabited because it's difficult to do. The highland regions are mountainous or hilly. Those include Guyana and the Brazilian highlands. If you take a good look at that map there, you see French Guiana, you see Guyana, which sound very similar, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador. Okay, so if we have the plains, which are a major part of Latin America, the mountains, I should say, my mistake, the mountains, which are a major part of Latin America, the plains are also a very important part, especially in South America. And the reason I wanted to talk about the different types of plains is because I think you can make a good connection between the types of plains that they have in South America and kind of the types of plains that we have here in the United States. There's a lot of good soil for farming and livestock in South America, especially. The llanos, now I'm not a Spanish teacher and I've never even taken Spanish, so if I just butchered that, please forgive me. I should go and ask Profe Ruter or Profe Mariela to help me pronounce these correctly. So llanos are grassy, treeless areas. We see the llanos mostly up in the northern part of South America, like Colombia and Venezuela, where they're treeless, grassy areas. And we can make a strong comparison of the llanos to the Great Plains. They're very much like our Great Plains here in the Midwest, these very grassy, treeless areas. The Cerrado is in the Amazon River basin. This is another area of plains, but it's less inhabited. It's in this Amazon River basin, so it has really good, rich soil. That is good. Sometimes governments in, especially some of these areas, Brazil, Venezuela, to an extent, try to get their populations to move more into the Cerrado. And we'll actually watch a video of what's happening in order to do that. And then the Pampas. The Pampas are the plains area in the southern part of South America, especially in Argentina and Uruguay. These are plains areas with rich soil and grasslands, very good for livestock, good for planting certain types of crops, especially like wheat crops. Now, there's a picture. I don't know if you've ever heard of a gaucho. A gaucho is kind of like the equivalent of an American cowboy. They are, the rugged type. They're usually kind of the loners. They're living out on their own, kind of a mysterious lifestyle. And they wear these interesting type of pants that they can tuck into their boots when they're riding. And sometimes those types of pants actually are called gauchos, but a gaucho is an Argentinian cowboy, typically what we refer to them as. There's rivers. Probably, the most famous next to the Nile River, probably the most famous river in the world is the Amazon River. But before we even get to the Amazon, let's talk a little bit about the Rio Grande. Now, do you remember when I had you find where the Rio Grande was? The Rio Grande separates the United States and Mexico, and it's the longest river system of Central America. Now, that's Central America, but it's a very important waterway and river system to that area. The Orinoco River. This is a short video. I'd actually like you to watch it. I'm not going to play it now for us to go together on this video because it'll just take up a little extra space for me, but I'd like you to watch it. It's only about a 3-minute video. And what I notice, and I hope you think about, is the Orinoco River I can make a lot of similarities to the Mississippi River. You cannot really say the Amazon and the Mississippi are anything alike, but I see a lot of similarities in the Orinoco River. Maybe not so much of like the animals and things, but kind of the way the river is used and how it was originally looked at, and then the way it's used for human interaction today, human behavior today. And then we get the Amazon. Look at that map right there. Like, that map is really, this very telling. The Amazon is 4,000 miles long, and it's fed by 1,000 tributaries. Now, tributaries are these smaller rivers. Look at all of those not little, those are like major rivers, and there's probably maybe 30 of them right there. Those are rivers that feed into the Amazon, and then the Amazon sends it into the Atlantic Ocean. This is a major, major water system. Carries more water than any other river. Any other river. The Nile is the longest river. The Amazon is the biggest river. The Parana starts in the highlands of Brazil, and it winds through Argentina and Uruguay. You can't see it, I don't think, on this map, but if we looked at a different map, you would see that the Parana empties into the Pacific Ocean then. All right, so if you can get a chance when we're done, go back and watch that video, just a short one. The Caribbean. Maybe some of you have seen pictures, beautiful pictures of Caribbean waters and the ocean. This is a lovely place to visit for both South Americans and North Americans. It's divided into 3 major groups. The first one is the Bahamas. Now, this is a collection of islands. Sometimes we say, oh, we're going to go to the Bahamas. Well, where in the Bahamas? Because it's off the southern tip of Florida, extends into the Atlantic, and some of the islands are bigger than others. Obviously, we'll take a look at the map here. You can see, look at that, like Andros. Andros Island is probably one of the bigger ones, Grand Bahama. Bimini, that's only 50 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is closer to the Bahamas than it is, say, like Tampa. So very, very close. You can see from Miami to Paradise Island. So these are just some of the islands that make up the Bahamas. Then we have the Greater Antilles. The Greater Antilles, so we're still in the way the Caribbean is broken up here, correct? So the Greater Antilles is another kind of section, if you will, of the Caribbean. These are some of the larger islands in the Caribbean. They include Cuba, which I'm sure you've heard of, Jamaica, very popular, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. These are all islands that are probably much more familiar to us as Americans. Probably they have larger populations. They also have heavy tourism. And so you probably have heard about these. However, maybe you've heard about them for unfortunate reasons like hurricanes striking and the devastation that they felt from natural disasters in the last maybe 10 years that you've perhaps heard about. There we can see a picture of the Greater Antilles. So this is where what we would consider, do you see where it says Haiti and the Dominican Republic? This is where Christopher Columbus first arrived. So Christopher Columbus first arrived at this area. He thought he was going to India. He was looking for a passageway to India from Spain. He was funded by the country of Spain. Remember, there's this great time of exploration in the 14 and 1500s by Europeans. Christopher Columbus thought he was going to Spain. He wound up in what's today the Caribbean. He called it Hispaniola. This is why he started calling the people there Indians, because he thought he was in the West Indies. It turns out he was entirely wrong, but this was kind of a general name because he felt he found a passage to India, and it was definitely not India. And then the Lesser Antilles. The Lesser Antilles are these smaller islands divided into two parts, either Windward Islands. In Windward, think of like, I know you can imagine this, the other day when it was really, really windy, walking into the wind. That's you face the winds that blow kind of across the ocean. So if you are on the Windward Island, you're facing this kind of these winds. If you're in the Leeward Island, you're more sheltered from the northeasterly winds. And so we'll take a look here. In that area in blue, those are considered the Lesser Antilles. And now we're getting really far south. Now take a look. I mean, you can see where Central America is. You can kind of see where the tip of Mexico is. You can see a little bit of the tip of Florida. We can see Cuba and Puerto Rico and Haiti. So these are really tiny chains of islands that are getting closer and closer to actually South America than they are North America. I took a trip one time after my husband returned from a deployment in Afghanistan to a tiny little island called St. Lucia, way the heck down there. It took a long time to get from Georgia down to St. Lucia, but that was considered the Lesser Antilles. Okay, now some resources. Actually, we're only going to do a couple more slides here, and then I'm going to pause, and the rest of it we're going to do in class together. There's an abundance of natural resources in Latin America, just like in North America. We're very much blessed with natural resources. So is Latin America. There's a lot of minerals: gold, silver, iron, copper, oil, natural gas. They have it all. It's the world leader in mining and exporting raw materials. That's how really blessed, as I said, they are. Page 204 in your book shows a good map of all of the oil reserves, the mineral reserves, all of the resources of Latin America. Take a look at that map and just kind of get an idea of where things are coming from, of pretty much all of these different resources. All right, so actually, that is as far as I want to get. When we go on, we're going to talk a little bit about the Amazon River Basin and how it's changed, and how how the area, especially in Brazil, is being changed by human environment interaction. So until we meet again, talk to you later. Goodbye.